society who's dependent on alcohol is something which we have to deal with regularly. All age groups do it. We often go to, someone's house and a 7-year-old's fallen over in the bath who's quite intoxicated and quite aggressive. So it doesn't really, it bridges all age groups, but definitely alcohol is a huge drain. It is tough because when you arrive on scene, the people there generally aren't thinking too clearly, or there's a lot of adrenaline at the scene, especially if it's an assault. I remember one case I went to was a young child. It was a SIDS case. Didn't even actually touch the patient, but we're on scene for an hour and a half just dealing with the family. I found that it sort of keeps coming up in my mind about pressures of the job. I think people do sacrifice a lot in their personal life to do this job, and that does have impact obviously on just your mental health. And we received a thank you. You know, the first few years of your job, you just pass them off. I just missed a birthday, doesn't mean I'm working or whatever, pass it off. But through time, you're missing those events that keep people in your life. And
I'd say things were starting to affect me long before I actually noticed that things were starting to affect me. We all have bad jobs, we all have streets we'll drive past, and sort of in your mind you can see somebody at the end of the street who's hung themselves. My worldview was starting to change. Getting up early in the morning to go out to do jobs at work was getting a lot harder, and I was sort of jokingly threatening to quit. Every job we got after midnight, I'd sort of threatened to quit. One more and that's it, I'm going home. But I first noticed when I realised that I had a number of suicide plans for when I got old. It's something that I've often talked to other paramedics about. I brought that up with a friend not long ago, and they were horrified that it had even come into my mind. People say they want to hear your stories, but they don't really. I know if I told them, it'd just make the whole room quiet.
I think Helen would have described herself as a square peg in a round hole.
Have you finished the porridge? And if so, have you made your bed?
Being a paramedic, I think, gave her lots of opportunities to use the good things about her personality. There were a few accidents that she went to that she found very disturbing. You know, things like picking up body parts off the road, scraping people back together. The things that really troubled Helen with her work environment, towards the end certainly, were that she could never get home on time. They were basically told to go to jobs, even if they hadn't had a break, or pressured into volunteering. She applied to the ambulance service so that she could work part-time. And they said, well, okay, you can work part-time, but only until your youngest child is of school age.
See you, Dukes. See you after school.
And the Ambulance Victoria said to her, well, your partner could work part-time. And I don't know any other organisation that would ask you to make your partner change her work hours just so that you could work what they wanted you to work.
I'd been on the phone with a friend and I got off the phone, I was dressed, I was ready for work, I had my lunch packed, it was time to leave, and I couldn't stop crying long enough to get in the car and drive to work. And not just crying, but like good quality, sort of sobbing, crying, hysterical kind of thing. And I thought, well, I probably shouldn't go in, I should probably go back inside and call somebody.
I've had friends commit suicide. People which you didn't know were going to do it. Well, just last year I lost 2 people I know. I think over the last 6-7 years, I think it's about 8 to 10, something like that. And you see these guys, they're paramedics because they want to help people. That's why they do the job. And they've pushed themselves too far.
The kids went to bed, we had an argument about something, and she got up, said goodnight to kids and slammed the door, and that was it. And didn't come home. I just figured she'd gone somewhere to cool off or sleep. And I woke up the next morning and she wasn't there. And in some ways it was a relief because she was it was like a cloud in the house because she was so heavy and sad and down. And I was making breakfast and the police came with her group manager, and she'd been found at one of the ambulance branches. I found out some of the details from the police on the day. They said that she'd used some drugs from the ambulance branch to take her life. Some of the details were in the press, and again, I wish I'd known that before it happened. My friends were getting frantic phone calls telling me not to listen to the radio.
We've got 10 suicides in 5 years in a very small workforce, really. What do we do? How do we go about it?
I think we need to understand it better, and we need to hear from paramedics and ambulance employees across the state about what their concerns are and what they think could be done.
Ambulance Victoria understands the risk of fatigue in the challenging environment that emergency services operate in. We support and manage fatigue for our staff in a variety of ways, including education, policies and procedures relating to end-of-shift strategies, minimum rest breaks between shifts, meal break management, and opportunities for paramedics to take fatigue breaks. We have also commenced a research project to explore potential roster options that meet our service delivery while allowing for a reduction in shift length.
I'd like the ambulance service to get taken apart, as in just taken apart and put back together in a healthier way. I can imagine if teachers took their lives at the same rate, or if politicians took their lives at this rate, there would be a much bigger response.
Being tired, working at all hours of the night, having to deal with traumatic situations when you are so tired just makes you more vulnerable.
I keep doing the job because when I'm at the hospital bed and Grandma's there and she puts her hand up and shakes your hand and says, "Look, thank you very much, I don't know what we'd do without you." You get that a couple of times a week and you realise you're in the right job.